Trauma is anything that causes distress and is out of our control, affecting an estimated 70% of all of us worldwide, regardless of socio-economic background, colour or class, and can be instant or a prolonged experience over years or even decades. Last week, Saturday, we sat down with Janine Campbell, the mother of 16-year-old Tion Campbell, who died from a single stab wound in 2022. We explored how Janine is healing after losing her beloved son and potential solutions to ending this epidemic. Now today, I have a very special guest who has not only overcome the odds and regained full health after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis shortly after losing his younger brother in 2001 in a double murder, but also has contributed to the woman that I am today. I welcome my father, who joins me today to speak about healing from not only the horrendous death of a loved one, but also the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis shortly after, which once rendered my father blind, bedridden, and wheelchair-bound.
I chose the title Lancing of the Bullet Wound because the word lance, when you have a wound, you lance the wound to try, and the attempt is to draw off the poison and the festering of that wound in order to heal the wound. So lancing of the bullet wound for me was a self-realization that when someone is shot, a loved one is shot with a bullet, it doesn't matter in war, it doesn't matter on the street of London or anywhere, there needs to be a healing. And the healing, they've gone, but then their loved ones, their friends, their family, their brothers, their sisters, there's a healing process that needs to happen. And I see that healing process in my experience as a need to lance the healing or lance the bullet wound to take away that emotional and physical festering of this wound that we all experience, hopefully not on a regular basis.
Thank you for that, Dad. And can you take us back to the beginning of this journey?
It was a normal Friday afternoon. I'd just come home from work. I remember I had a bicycle that needed repairing, and as I was repairing, it was the wheel that was punctured. And as I was repairing the wheel, I received a phone call. And as the phone was ringing, at the same time, simultaneously in the background, there was some reggae music that was playing. And I remember the ringing tone of the phone started to synchronize with the reggae music that was playing. And I thought, who's this bothering my time now? So eventually I went to the phone, I picked it up. I said, hello. And it was the voice of my father, but I didn't recognize the voice because it was so frantic and so full of excitement and emotion. I said, hello, who's this? It's your father. It's your father. Your brother dead.
What was the emotions that you felt at that moment in time?
Disbelief. It was as if I was detached from my physical body to hearing a voice that I recognized, but the words coming from him was alien. I could not accept what I was hearing. Eventually, I went into this place of logic where I said, okay, Dad, calm down. Have you seen the body? No. I said, right, mistakes are making, mistakes happen. Let's just stay calm until we actually see my brother's body. Then we can begin to mourn. But this is a rumor. You've heard from someone who heard from someone else. My father, he stayed, he became calm, because you have to understand he was living 200 miles away from me. I was living in London, and it was hard where, I couldn't see him physically to console or calm him, so I had to use whatever skill I had at the time to calm him over the phone. And eventually we both came to some rationale, and we agreed that until I go to Bristol to confirm what has happened, then we can go forward.
How did this impact you?
Well, I can say that eventually when I did get to Bristol, and it was confirmed, I was the one who volunteered to go into the mortuary to identify the body. It was then that everything, I suppose, unfolded. When I left the mortuary room and expressed to my father, my mother, and my siblings that it is in fact my brother lying there, everyone broke down into, let's just call it an emotional scene, very emotional scene. The whole experience initially brought me to a place that I can only describe as very dark. The only intention on my mind was a one-track intention, and that was to seek revenge and to spend the rest of my days in Her Majesty's service. And I guess it was reflecting on my children, including you, Marcella, and my own life, that I said, no, there must be another way. But even though it was like a fight between the two, like I had, if you want to call it, Satan on one side and God on another side, one telling me to do this and one telling me to do this or do that. And I was in this place that was alien to me. I was drinking more. I was drinking a lot, in fact. And I began to use marijuana more than usual to stay calm and go to sleep. But every day was like another day of, because you have to understand, the person who took my brother's life, I learned, was over a road rage, and this character was still at large. So it was difficult for me to resolve emotions within myself, because I was still aware that this character was still at large. Who else would he go and hurt, And I just wanted to seek some sort of retribution, whether it was, just seeing him captured or, behind bars or in some other way. What happened later, I don't want to go too far ahead, but let's say after the initial incident with my brother, several months down the road, the character that took his life was apprehended. And what happened before he was apprehended, I was then affected physically. When I say affected physically, I mean more physically, was I woke up one morning and it was a normal morning. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, in fact, roughly. And I took one step to go to the bathroom, to use the bathroom, and I found myself collapsed on the floor. Prior to this, just to put things into context, I was a boxer, used to box. I trained other people to box. And I was a half marathon runner. I used to go on long cycle rides. I was always active. I was always fit, always keeping active. And to find myself collapsed on the floor on this day, several months after losing my brother, I thought, this is rather strange, you know. And it wasn't only until the ambulance crew came to my flat. It was only when these two burly ambulance men came through my door that I realized reality hit me. And I realized that there was something wrong. So, to make a long story short, they carried me to the ambulance. I was then transported to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. And I underwent various tests and diagnosis and prognosis and all sorts of. And at first I was told I may have sickle cell. Then I was thinking it was a stroke. Some were saying it could have been a heart attack. But after several weeks of blood tests and continued CAT scans and CTC scans, they eventually came with a conclusion, and they told me that I have multiple sclerosis. Now, the only time I heard of multiple sclerosis before this was Richard Pryor, the comedian. I was under the impression, or most of us were at the time in the 80s, that he actually died from multiple sclerosis, because I knew nothing about this condition. And so now, just to kind of try and capture my mind at the time, I've lost my brother a few months ago. I now have a disease that the only thing I can relate to was Richard Pryor, who had lost his life from the same condition. And I'm thinking about my family, from my mom to my father to my children. And I'm thinking, I need some divine intervention here. These were just thoughts coming into my head whilst I was in hospital. And it was when the police, I suppose, the liaison officers, came to my bedside and they informed me that they had captured the person who took my brother's life. And it was as if the following night, something, I'm a strong believer in intuition and listening to a gut feeling, or listening to, some people call it a gut feeling, some people call it divine inspiration, but something told me, Gary, you put yourself where you are because of the poison that you are sending out there. You had one person in mind and you focused all this negativity on this person. You wanted to hurt this person physically. This person was obviously the person who took my brother's life. And what you need to do, Gary, this is nothing to do with a religion or any religion. This is just to do with reality and you. And the important thing for you to do now is to forgive. You're not turning the other cheek. You're not becoming an overnight Christian or a Muslim or anyone. This is just you. You need to let go of this package that you've been holding on for this character who took your brother's life. And once I acknowledged that realization or that message, over time, other, or shall I say, positive ideas started to come into my flow. Years ago, I used to work with troubled young people, and I would introduce them to basic techniques of, using your mind to empower yourself, self-affirmations, positive affirmations, to overcome trauma, to overcome challenges in life. And I found now I had to reverse that and use those same techniques on myself. I mean, some of the techniques are referred to as NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming is one form. and one is just simple positive self-talk. So as I began this, I mean, there's one, before I go any further, I'm not saying to all of you people out there that this is what you need to do if you are overcoming your challenge. This is what I did for me, and this is what worked for me. I started to listen to myself. I listened to my inner voice, if you will, and listened to my body. There's things I stopped eating naturally. I just didn't feel they were something that was going to enhance my health. I cut down on so many stuff. I started to eat a lot of greens. You know, I know we joke about Popeye eating his spinach, but that was me. I was eating a lot of spinach, a lot of cabbage, anything green, that would be me eating. I found someone introduced me to a drink, a super green drink, and this drink was an organic drink in powder form that contained 49 different greens. These greens, the theory behind it is that the leaves of these greens, they absorb the sun's energy, and cutting them or harvesting them at the correct time and then making them into a powder, you can absorb some of that energy carried by the plant from the sun. So this is something else I added to my diet. I started to eat, I love meat and I love meat today, but I cut down a lot of meat during that time. And I started to think differently. I've convinced myself. In fact, there's one thing I used to say, you know, denial was always seen as a negative choice that people could take, to be in denial. But in my case, I flipped the coin upside down and I found that I need to be in denial of the condition that I'm in. Here I am in hospital, both legs not working, one arm, one eye, blind in one eye, one arm, no use, and having to be pushed around in a wheelchair. I started to think that this is not me. I was told by other multiple sclerosis victims, if you will, that I'm in denial and I should just accept. But my answer to them was no. I'm in this body. I'm the only one in this body. I was in this body for, at the time, nearly 30, nearly 40 years. So if anyone should know their body, it should be me. No disrespect to medical staff. I'm very appreciative of them, the nurses, the doctors, the specialists. But they can only do so much. Yes, they can fix a broken limb, but when it comes to the mind and the body, that's something else. It doesn't matter if you believe in a cure, let's say a medicine, a conventional medicine. If you believe in it, it can cure you. If you don't believe in it, it won't cure you. The point I'm trying to make is so many tests have been done in the medical industry where they use placebo medicine. They will give you a pill that's only a sugar pill, and they will say, this pill will heal you. You take that pill, after several days or weeks, your condition has been healed, it's gone. So what that showed me was that your mind alone can facilitate healing if you allow your body that space. For me, I felt like I didn't want to confuse my body's process by taking pharmaceutical drugs, which is bringing me up onto another subject, which is I refused any form of medication from the specialists and the the medical staff that was caring for me at the time. Again, no disrespect for them. They only know what they know, or what they knew. As time rolled on, I could see movement in my fingers of the hand that was, or the arm that was completely dead, let's call it that. And I believe this was happening because of a technique I used to use. Sorry, listeners, you may think this sounds crazy, but when I conclude, you'll realize that this is real. I'm telling you a true story. I'm here. I was able to come here alone. I wasn't in a wheelchair. Let me stick to the point. Every evening before I went to sleep, I would imagine myself in a boxing ring with a character wearing a vest called with MS, the letters MS. And every night I would imagine myself in the ring knocking this character out, knocking him clean out of the ring. Now as time progressed, I realized I could begin to move, little movements in the fingers of my hand that was dead. And as time went on, my wrists began to regain life, my forearms and my arms, or my arm. They were very subtle, so subtle that no one would notice unless I told them. And I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want someone to feed me back with negative, their own negative perspective, thinking that, oh, it's all in your head, which it was all in my head, but it was working, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So, as time went on, I was accepting the physiotherapy work in hospital. Eventually, the time came for me to leave hospital in a wheelchair, unable to walk, partially blind, a little bit of life returning to one hand. And I remember being asked by my specialist, Gary, are you sure we can't offer you an aspirin, at least? And that was a personal joke between us both, and we both laughed, and I shook my head, of course. It was when I got home in the wheelchair that's when the journey began, I suppose. I hope I'm not going on too long here, but when I got home, that's when I really began working on myself. I began reading books or having books read to me regarding the power of the mind and how the mind influences the body, how the mind influences your health and well-being. And I submerged myself into, there's a character called Anthony Robbins who spoke a lot. He wrote a lot about NLP and the power of the mind. Joe Dispenza is another character that can be looked up. And these were guys who were scientists, but at the forefront of a new type of medicine, the medicine of the mind, where you use your mind to heal yourself. And I'm not saying again that people should throw away their conventional medicine and start, I'm going to heal myself. No, it doesn't work like that. There was one lady, this reminds me, whilst I was in hospital, there was a lady, Mrs. Campbell, God rest her soul. She came to my ward, and she said, oh, you're the young man. She was an older lady than me, Jamaican lady, and she turned to me and said, oh, you're the gentleman who's not taking your medication. And I said, who are you? He said, I've heard about you. I've come down from upstairs in the cardio ward. They tell me, say, you're not taking medication. And I said, yeah, but how come they send you down here to pressure me to take medication? He said, well, I look out for you, man. You have to take what them give you, And I said, Mrs. Campbell, your name? Yeah. Look, the decision I've made isn't one where I've just said I'm not taking my medication. I've thought about what my condition is. No one, although they have diagnosed this condition, there is no one who can point blank say, this is it, this is the condition, because as far as I know, it's a multiple of conditions in one. Hence the name multiple sclerosis. And there's no one out there who can say, take this pill or this medicine and it will all be gone. And there's no one who can conclusively come to me and tell me that. They can tell me that, but it doesn't work. And that's from my own research whilst I was in hospital. This thing is something untreatable. So I've decided to go it alone, if you will, and work on my body. Because if anyone should know my body, it should be me. The other thing I told Mrs. Campbell was that the medication that is on offer can cause so many side effects of which I have none of those conditions at present. You know, I can get kidney failure, I can gain weight, and I'm thinking, why would I take something when I don't have any of that? I'm dealing with this, what they call MS. So the logic is, deal with this and don't add anything else. Mrs. Campbell looked at me and said, "A true, you know? A true, you know?" And then we became friends, and she stopped harassing me.
Thank you for sharing that, Dad. So that's a lot to take in, and you've covered not only what you've been through, but how you overcame using a holistic approach, a natural approach. What does healing mean to you then?
Healing to me personally, it means trusting yourself. It means listening. It means being silent. It means so many things, actually. It means being silent and listening to yourself, listening to your body. You know, I remember a time in hospital where I realized my body is a garden. My mind is a garden. It has every cure for every ailment. But somehow, maybe 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, we were severed from that natural ability to self-heal. So I think for me personally, it's all about, I can use the word relaxing and allowing, listening to all the little the ticks within the body that's telling you what to eat, what to drink to enhance your well-being. I mean, when I say there's so many sections to healing, you then have someone who can come and give you healing through energy transfer. There are exercises that can enhance your healing, which brings me on to other exercises that I introduced. Instead of submerging myself into all the Western exercises that I had known through boxing, I then started to investigate the more deeper, inner exercises from the East. Exercises like Qigong and Tai Chi, which I practice to this day daily. Don't ask me about the mechanisms of it. I mean, I'll leave that to a master to do this. But in its essence, it heals you from inside. Practicing Tai Chi and Qigong heals you from inside. It doesn't make you live forever, but it makes you be able to walk through life with a little bit more shabazz. We all experience trauma I've experienced trauma since my brother. But it's different now because I'm aware of all these other healing modalities that are out there other than just going to someone who, you know, it's all about what you eat, it's about what you drink, it's about the exercises you do. Just doing normal exercise is good. Going for a run down the road or walk. It's all about the healing umbrella.
Absolutely. And once again, taking that holistic approach definitely works wonders. What advice would you offer to someone who has lost a sibling or any family member to murder?
To be honest with you, I'm aware that there's 7 or more than nearly 8 billion people on this planet now. And of course, there are different ways that people will react to different situations of trauma. So, my story isn't to convince anybody. It's not to tell people this is what you should do. My story is to let you know there's another way. You need to find that way for yourself because we're all different. But there is another way. I guarantee there is another way.
It's very profound and very insightful. Thank you for that. In life, I find that there are always gems found in the darkest of places. What, if any, gifts have you found in the midst of your pain?
Okay, I've always tried to be or remain in the realms of logic and reasoning, logical reasoning. But something, or call it a gift, a profound gift that occurred, which I include in my story, and which ties in, it's like it was the last ribbon of my story that was tied to confirm to me, Gary, what you're doing is correct, what you have done is correct, and this is the reward. This is the message. So before my brother died, the day when he was killed, he rang me up and he told me, he asked me, he said, brother, I had a dream, man, and this dream was so real. Can you tell me what it means? And I remember saying to my brother that, listen, I'm not Mystic Meg. Mystic Meg was some woman that used to come on telly and tell you this and tell you that about what's going to happen in the future and all kind of things. So I told him, look, he said, no, I don't know why. I just know that you can tell me what this dream means. So I said, what is it? He told me that he dreamt, I won't go into the dream, but basically he dreamt of a golden shower standing under a shower that was raining down gold. And after he told me the content of the dream, I said to him, look, I can't tell you what that dream means for you, but for me, if I had that dream, it would tell me that there's going to be a time of great change. A time of great change. The beginning of the old and the end of the old and the beginning of something new. And it was the evening of that same day when my father rang me and gave me the message that my brother had gone. The gift, you asked me about the gift. Remember that dream in 2001? 2001. It was around about 2002, the late part of 2002, when I decided, by now I'm stronger. There's no wheelchair, there's no walking frame, there's no stick. I feel confident. I mean, there's other stories within the book which I don't think we have enough time for me to go into that right now. But the gift, you asked me about the gift, I decided to go to Cuba. against the advice of my GP and certain friends and family. Some were concerned that Cuba is a communist country. My GP was more concerned that the heat would affect my condition and I would revert back to how I was in a wheelchair. But something was calling me to Cuba, and I eventually went. I spent 2 weeks in Cuba, and I had the most beautiful time I could imagine. But this specific moment in Cuba, what I'm going to tell you about now, was my message, the thing that I went inadvertently to see. And to make a long story short, because I tend to talk long, I know, sorry, but to make a long story short, I was with my mother, who had gone into an arcade, and the reason why we were there was because it was the last few hours that we had left in Cuba. It was our last day before we went back. So the hotel where we stayed at, they put on an excursion, a couple-hour excursion, where we could go into the town, Old Havana, and do some last-minute souvenir shopping. And I didn't feel to do anything. I just wanted to chill and relax. So I went with my mom. She went into the shops. As I was sitting there on a bench looking over a bay, and my mind was, wow, this is so nice. Two couples approached me, a man, were both men, and one of them asked me for a light. And I told him I don't smoke. So he looked a bit like Forrest Whitaker, the actor. He said, oh, English. I said, yeah. I'd like you to come see a museum. Come with me. And I thought, what's this guy doing? Ask me. He does, and he said, at the same time, my mom was leaving the arcade, and she came to where I was sitting, and these guys were there. As I stood up, I said, okay, yeah, let's go. Now, this is all going against my natural instinct, because I'm always, aware and telling people how to be aware. But my mom, she thought I was crazy. She said, they're going to take us away and kill us. I said, no, I don't know what this is, but I'd like to follow them to this museum. Now, the museum wasn't like your big national London museum. It was just a little shop. It was like a little off-license that you'd walk into. But instead of there being sweets to buy and packs of crisps, there was little dolls and mannequins dressed in African attire. And in the little English that this Cuban chap had, he told me that, this is the history of how slaves from Nigeria came to Africa, and this represents that. And I was quite intrigued. But, it was a very humble shop, humble museum, let's say. So as we left the museum, the other chap, he turned and said, you come and see our family, see our children. And I pointed out that we only have a limited time because the coach from the hotel will be coming to pick us up. And when I relayed it to my mom anyway, she nearly freaked out. She said, definitely not, no way. They're going to take we and they're going to kill we. No. I said, Mommy, just calm, man. So as it went on, I said, yeah, let's go. We've got enough time, let's go. They only lived 5 minutes walk away from the museum. And I felt like nothing could hurt me. I felt like we were protected anyway. So we followed these two gentlemen to an apartment up some rickety stairs that was outside the building. They knocked the door. The door was opened by this young kid. We went inside. There was this woman in there who they introduced was their partners. and they asked us if we wanted freshly squeezed cane juice. We sat down, obviously said yes, and was there. As I got my glass, I'm sitting next to my mum. One of the chaps, or one of the guys, came back into the room, and he pointed at me, and he beckoned me to come, follow him. My mum grabbed my hand and said, "You're not going nowhere, they're going to take you away." I said, "We're cool, Mum." As I followed this chap outside in a hallway, he pointed to a door. Now, what you have to remember, this is literally the last few hours I had left in Cuba. This chap who was dressed in white cap, white jacket, white trousers, he pointed to the door, a door, and he said, beckoned me to go in. I pushed the door, and I saw the other chap who looked like Forrest Whitaker sitting down on a stool, and he had a big book in his hand, and he beckoned me to sit down on another stool that was in front of him. So I sat there, and in my head, to be honest with you, I was thinking, I won't swear on radio, but I just thought, what the is this? What's this? He opened the book, and he started, he started to read. I don't know if he was reading from the book or he just holding the book and making these sounds, but he started to make these. I could work out that it was like a mixture of Spanish and Yoruba, maybe. And then he suddenly stopped and he looked at me. And this is the gift that I'm going to tell you now. He pointed to me and he said, your brother okay.
From England, UK to Cuba, in a location you've never been before, amongst gentlemen you've never met before, on your last day before returning home, you receive a gift from a stranger confirming that your brother is okay.
Your brother okay. Your brother, and he took his hands and his two fingers and he pointed at himself. Your brother shot. Your brother shot. Your brother good. Your brother tell me okay. And I went into this place of surreal, unreal, irrational reality. I didn't know where I was and what I was hearing. What did you say? I said. What did you just say? Your brother, no pain, brother good. And I thought, what's going on? You, no more wheelchair. And I said, no, hold on a minute. I'm here in Cuba. It's my last day, my last few hours. I meet these strangers. And you're telling me I have no signs that I was in a wheelchair. I was walking strong. I mentioned nothing about my brother. Why would I, to complete strangers in the last few hours in Cuba? But this gentleman, who I later learned his name is Babalao, he told me what I needed to hear. 5,000 miles away from the UK, where there's no internet. There was no internet at the time. If there was, you needed to go into some government building to use an internet, which wasn't very good anyway. So the information that he gave me was purely from an internet that we are unaware of, a universal internet, something that we have somehow modeled this internet, what we use now, on. So praises to that, give thanks to that experience. That's the gift.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us, Dad. Extremely profound, and to some it may sound insane, but it happened. And I think that just reiterates how connected we all are, regardless of how close or far we are. And lastly, to wrap up, what is one thing, in a few words, that you would like to leave with the world today?
Believe in yourself. Radiate love. Without going on again too long, but, I learned through my journey scientifically, emotionally, all the illies, that love is the greatest power in the universe. You know, so the gift that I leave with everyone out there who's hearing this is love, unconditional love for your brother, for your sister. It don't mean you have to hug up with people and, you know, just send the energy of love out to even your enemies and all will be good.
Thank you very much, Dad, for being here today and sharing how you took a courageous path and took your health into your own hands and overcame not only your physical condition, but also the brutal death of your brother, my uncle. To read my dad's full journey, many more of his golden nuggets, and find out in depth how my father overcame his grief and trauma, as well as his medical diagnosis, you can find his book on Amazon, Lancing of the Bullet Wound by Gary Hamilton. Although murder steals a life, it can never steal the undying connection and love that transcends all time and space. Thank you for listening to the healing segment with me, Miss Shari.
Chosen you with me. All that I know is I'm falling. Third eye. I don't know about the strength they say that comes from deep within.